I'm a woman. Guilt is our birthright. Guilt if we want to be mothers. Guilt if we take the pill instead of choose to abort. Guilt if we stay home with our kids, or guilt if we work. Guilt if we sleep with a man. Guilt if we say no. Guilt if we're lucky enough to survive for no good reason.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the First Ones to Die bookcast. My name is Jonathan. I'm here with the one and only Alex. Alex, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Excited to talk about the book we read and excited to talk about the book I am reading.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about
Uh,
you?
well, I'm doing good. It's a nice Sunday on the day that we're recording this, so can't complain. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping.
I honestly forgot it was Sunday per se. Until you said that, I was like, wait, oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway,
Tomorrow's Monday. Yes, but the book that we are reading, and you know this already because you clicked on this video and saw the title. We are reading Killers of a Certain Age, or we have read rather Killers of a Certain Age. Killers of a Certain Age. It is by Deanna Raybourn, and it's her first contemporary novel featuring four female assassins who must band together to take out their nemesis as they prepare for retirement. I believe this book came out last year. This was a book of the month pick a few months ago.
it came out. It was first published September 6th, 2022.
Okay, so about 6 months ago.
Yeah, it's 368 pages. The hardback cover. So what we have,
Yes.
just reading off the stuff. Um, you said this was her first contemporary novel.
Yeah, so it sounds like she's maybe done historical stuff, maybe. And
I
I
don't
can
know too much
100%
about the author. Yeah, go ahead.
same. I was just gonna say I can 100% see that if she's done historical stuff in the past, maybe like some period pieces.
It honestly, when I first started to read it, kind of felt like a little bit of a beginner novel.
Mm, like a
Uh,
debut.
yeah, it had that vibe to it. So I wouldn't be surprised if that
Yeah.
was like her first. But let me
What
actually.
were your overall thoughts of this book?
It, I wasn't impressed by it, honestly. I think I was expecting a little bit more. Um, Maybe because it just felt a little too contemporary. Does that make sense?
Mm,
It was
mm-hmm.
definitely trying to feel like it was trying to follow a story line that's been created before, even though the concept is very interesting. Um, which the concept is about four older women coming out of retirement to be assassins again, and you never see works where it's older women being assassins. You always have something like James Bond, who's in his like 40s to 60s to 70s. This is like a nice version of like going to the other side, but it just felt like it could have been written better. I'm not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
I agree. Um, I tend to agree. Yeah, I when I was reading it, I was like, because I don't often read uh the type of spy assassin genre, and so I'm like, maybe I don't really like the spy genre, the assassin genre, that kind of stuff, where they have to face the Russian mafia and fight off the bad guys. But now that I'm hearing your thoughts on it, I'm like, maybe it's just the book that I didn't necessarily connect with all the way. Um, like you said, the concept is great. The fact that it's about older women who are assassins and they can hold their own and you know kill all these bad guys is really cool. Um, but I feel like the story didn't capture me as much as I would have wanted it to.
Yeah.
It was a little choppy for me in the sense that um, so we have uh, multiple timelines. We go back in time to when Billy was first, starting this role as an assassin, and when she was first getting introduced to the museum, which is what they call the organization. And then we go back to present day where, the women, they start on a cruise ship and then they end up, going to all these different places because they find out that there's a hit after them. Um, and I felt that the story maybe because it wasn't told like completely linear, or maybe there were like at some points there were like kind of too many details that I didn't necessarily care about, that I kind of tuned out at points because I listened to a lot of it on audiobook. But yeah, so I didn't necessarily connect with all of it, and I wish I would have, because I like the concept.
I absolutely agree with you about the too many details because in the first chapter alone, um, yeah, it's where you're getting introduced to everybody, and they're trying to make it to show how like certain characters are like a nitpicker and things like that, and they mentioned like a run in the stockings, and I was like, this doesn't feel important. Hold on, Cheddar,
But
can I please just
we
be
know
one?
who is important, Cheddar.
Cheddar's always important. It was just like little things like that, and I didn't like it. There's something about it that just felt like it was kind of forced.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Which I felt like I was super excited about the book when I first saw it. Like even the cover, and it tells you, like the title tells you what it's going to be about, like killers who are older. Um, and I'm like, okay, I love that concept, but it didn't fulfill 100% the wish for me.
I didn't like so some of the damn it, sorry. Some of the chapters are only like 3 pages, 2 pages. But then suddenly you get like a 10, 11, 12 page, chapter. That felt really off to me. I'd rather have you have all the chapters are short or all the chapters are long. I don't like it because then, yeah, you're right. It feels choppy because I'm like, all right.
Mm-hmm.
Then it suddenly feels like this chapter is going on forever. And I felt like the way she inserted the flashbacks or adding the second timeline um felt like a little off. It would have felt better almost as if it was a memory more than a separate chapter.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the I think it's very fickle. It's a very fickle thing to do when you're trying to do two timelines together that are kind of linear but aren't at the same time. And I think you have to be very careful when you're doing that because then the person could be like, "Oh, what timeline are we in? When did this happen?" She does provide dates. I will say that at the beginning of the chapter, she does add the month and the year that you are in,
Mm-hmm.
at least for the flashbacks. But I think it's just you can get because you're reading, you get so into things, you forget to check those little time frames. So you're
Right.
like, well, why are they suddenly not able just to call somebody on a phone? Oh, that's right. They don't have cell phones back in the 80s, or they don't have like inconspicuous cell phones back in the 80s.
Right.
Um, I think I did like the characters. I think the characters were well written, and I think they were well developed. And I like the Billy character. She's a little more complex, but she's a very likable character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so the other ones were not. I think it was Marianne who was a little annoying. There was one who was
Yes,
very
because
neurotic.
she was the
Is that
one
her?
who had all the issues
Mary
and was
Alice
always crying. Mary Alice, who was always
crying
crying. Yeah.
constantly. Which I get it. Which is like, why are you an assassin then? How did you stay an assassin? Because in the first part, you almost get choked out. How did you survive this long?
And which brings me to a point of mine, which is that I felt like they didn't face as much adversity as they should have. Like, it would be okay, they would have a mission, like they have to get to this person. They got to the person, maybe there would be like a little struggle, and then they would kill them. Then they'd be on to the next. A little struggle, maybe, and they would kill them. It's not like they really faced a lot of like trouble. in killing each person that they needed to kill.
Yeah,
They kind of
killing.
had an easy route. Yeah, they succeeded in all the missions like pretty easily.
Oh, I looked up the author and I looked up some of her books. You were spot on. All her ones were historical fiction,
Oh,
historical
interesting.
romances, historical mystery. Uh, so you were spot on. Yeah.
Like what era?
So she has one that's called The Silent in the Grave. It is about Lady Julia Gray.
So it's probably like the
Uh
1800s.
yeah, probably Prince Edward, Tudor time. And then
Mm,
she has another one, Veronica Spedwell's series. It's in London, 1887.
okay.
So you were actually very spot on about like the vibe she gives for a writer, which
Mm-hmm.
I can understand breaking into a whole new genre, which when you're so used to writing historical fiction, because with historical fiction you do have to give like way more detail because you have to
And you
not only set a scene, you have to describe like, well, why is the character acting like this? Okay, because back then this was the behavior of the time.
right. And you probably have to do a lot more research as well when you're writing historical just to make sure you're not writing anything that wouldn't be inaccurate.
Yeah.
And I can tell she did a lot for this too, which is good. Like I'm not knocking anything about that because it's good to know that you actually are writing something that you know about and something that you have learned about and or researched. Um,
Yeah,
but
this
that
book you can absolutely tell she's put in a lot of effort to it.
yes,
There is effort and it comes out clear. The like I said, the plot's really good. It's just there's something that fell short in the story. And it's hard to
right. And
describe that because yeah, she put so much effort.
she's put a lot of effort into it. But that effort also has to translate to the reader because if we don't care or know what you're talking about, then it's just going to fall flat. And I think that's kind of what happened a little bit, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think the characters are very likable, but you don't for me personally, I didn't connect with any of them. And with
Mm,
a lot of books, you have to find yourself a little bit in each of the characters or in one of the characters for you to be like, "Oh, I feel that and I would do those type of stuff." Like you would feel that connection. I didn't
mm-hmm.
feel any connection with any of the characters.
Yeah.
I found them likable and I enjoyed it, but I was like, yeah, I can't really see myself as anything in this book.
There were a couple of scenes that I did like. And there were a couple of things, there were a couple of, like just little gems in there that I did like as well. I liked some of the scenes, how she set up some of the kills, like with the guy who they pretended to be the massage people and then killed him by wrapping him in a mud wrap that was laced with uh, nicotine.
Yeah. It looked like you
Uh,
overdosed.
mm-hmm. And then there was the first guy that they got, the guy who was pretending to be a staff member on the cruise ship, but who was actually there to blow up the ship. I really liked that scene as well.
I think that scene made me giggle. Because it was just like I kept thinking, I'm like, is there any actually real crew members on this ship? Cheddar. Ignore that. It just made me think like I feel like if they go and they find like every crew member is not actually a crew member, and everybody's a spy, everybody's assassin. Be like, who's actually controlling this boat? Is there anybody actually trained to handle this boat?
Right.
But yeah, you're right. Some of the kills were very creative, and I did like that. It wasn't a quick like stabby stab or something.
Right.
She came up with creative ways to kill people,
Exactly.
which can only come with experience. So that was a
Right.
nice way to show their experience throughout the ages, because yeah, the nicotine overdose can happen,
Right.
especially back in the
I
'80s where people smoked like crazy.
I also liked some of the
No.
uh I also like some of the concepts that she introduced, kind of like as throwaway. Cheddar is wanting to make his on-camera appearance. Um,
Really does.
some of the concepts, like the French term, I forget what the exact term was, but it was basically like she talked about the French term where it's like if you're standing on uh
Oh,
this edge of
call
a cliff.
La Pal du Vide,
Okay, did you
the
write that
call of
down
the
as well?
void. No, I've
Yes.
actually heard that many times before. It's the call of the
Okay.
void.
Yes, I've heard of that once before, but I couldn't remember the like the phrase. It's like when you're standing on the edge of a cliff and you think about like what would happen if I just threw myself off the cliff, or you're driving and all of a sudden you're just like, what would happen if I like just sped into the other lane.
Excuse
And
me. Get down.
and it's like and it's not, and it doesn't have to anything, it doesn't have anything to do with like, being suicidal or anything. It's actually the opposite. It's like about your will to live, because you think about a danger or a threat, and you think about it in order to avoid it.
You think about if could I survive it too. So there's
Mm-hmm.
the where you could fall into the void, but it's like also would I survive it? Because like I've had that thought where like, oh, I wonder if that like, because I do get anxious driving, especially when there's like semi trucks next to me or like big trucks, and I was like, would I survive in my little Volkswagen Beetle if that thing just tipped over for some reason? My answer usually is probably not. Especially because I see a lot of these things where people are like, "Oh yeah, if something's falling on you, just like grab your seat handle and go backwards." Nowadays, a lot of cars don't have that. They have the electric, so you either go back slowly. My lovely car has a turn. It's a
Oh.
little dial, so I'm not gonna be doing that fast enough. So if something's falling on me, I can't like lay flat and hopefully it doesn't like smush me. I have a
Right.
dial on the side of my car. And like I'm sure any car that has that normal like pushing, we'll see. There's a car behind me now complaining about it. Can you hear the car alarm?
Uh-uh.
Okay, well thank God. There's a car alarm outside my window going off. But yeah,
Speaking of
so
cars.
there's things like that. I think so that's like actually yeah, you're right. It's a pretty normal thing for us to it's our survival instincts.
Yeah,
And I feel like as an assassin you would need that. You're like, could you
exactly.
survive this?
Right. She also mentioned the ips, which is basically like not being able to do something that you've always been an expert at. Like all of a sudden, just one day you can't do that thing for whatever reason. And I thought that was really interesting as well.
That was originated by a baseball player, I believe.
Yes, I think she mentioned that in the book as well.
Yeah, I forget who it was, but yeah, he was not able to like swing a bat or something. Anyway,
Yeah,
you get so nervous, you're like, oh God.
right. Like, when is that gonna happen? How is it gonna happen? Why does it happen? Yeah.
I do like how much they express some of the guilt that they felt after like kills or things like that. But also when they were like, well, guilt is like a birthright of a woman. You'll always feel guilty about something. And I was like, yeah, that speaks volumes. Cause hold on, I had it written down. I'm a woman. Guilt is our birthright. Guilt if we want to be mothers. Guilt if we take the pill instead of choose to abort. Guilt if we stay home with our kids, or guilt if we work. Guilt if we sleep with a man. Guilt if we say no. Guilt if we're lucky enough to survive for no good reason. Which is, like I said, speaks volume because like a lot of women do just are talking about guilt all the time. I feel guilty when I do this. I feel guilty when I do that. And it's like it's hard to just live your life. And then to add like a career that technically you're supposed to be a killer and you're supposed to have no mercy and have no guilt, you'll still experience that. And it's very interesting that they brought that up. And I do appreciate that because it keeps them human. These aren't just like
Hmm.
soulless assassins. You know, these aren't just killers. They show that they are still people. and they have kept their humanity throughout their whole careers, which is interesting because a lot of times in like thrillers, spy books, and things like that, you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm the monster that they created over time, or like I'm the killer, the things like that, the darkness, they are the
Right.
darkness. But they still kept this very light where they were like, yeah, I'm still like a human being, I was planning on retiring, this was my job, I felt bad doing my job, but I did my job to provide for my family or myself or whoever. And I do like how she kept their humanity intact with that.
Yeah. Especially when they've been doing it for so long, 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably killed hundreds, if not thousands of people. That guilt's gonna weigh on you, regardless of whether or not you think they deserved it, which they probably did
Some of them
because
did.
they're killing bad people. Yeah, but you're gonna feel guilty, and you're that human thought is gonna creep in
And the
eventually.
very human thought about, like, again, in the first chapter, they're like, when they see a dog, they're like, I'm not killing a dog.
Right.
I didn't I didn't sign up to kill a dog. And I think it was Barry Alice where they're like, you need to settle down. We're trying to kill like five people who are like five men who are much larger than us. The dog is the least of our problems. Relax. And then they actually, when they're parachuting out, they zip up the dog. They're like, leave the dog. She's like, I'm not leaving the dog.
Right. And they're like, that dog's not gonna survive the fall, but the dog did.
It did. It survived everything. I was a little gross. They're like, don't let the dog lick the blood. The contents will be in its stomach. And I was like, it's such a weird thought. But like accurate, absolutely accurate. Don't let the dog lick
Mm-hmm.
the blood. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there was also that show of like humanity there, because like a lot of people will try not to harm an animal because the animals are usually
Right.
innocent. They're not doing
There
anything.
were some lines in the book that I thought were a little cheesy. And I don't know if this was meant to be, since these were both lines that characters said, I don't know if they were meant to be cheesy or if it was just the writing. Somebody said, I don't remember who said each of these lines, but I just wrote them down. Somebody said, what did you have for breakfast? Honey bunches of bitch? And then somebody else,
I
do you
actually really
remember
like that. I love that. I cackled.
that?
Oh, I was in my office just like cackling. Oh, go on.
And then towards the end, somebody else said, because they were talking about like how many languages somebody spoke. Somebody said your Duolingo score must be the absolute shit.
Yeah, I think that's those one-liners where you bring in like modern technology, where you talk about like actual apps
Mm-hmm.
where you're just kind of like pulled out from the book.
I was like, I can't imagine a 60-year-old saying that.
I could see the honey bunches of bitch part.
Yeah, I could see that.
Not the Duolingo thing, because my mom's 62 and I've had to explain what Duolingo is. Then I get the whole, why don't you just let me teach you Spanish? I'm like, because you're terrible at it. You're terrible at teaching me stuff. Um, yeah, there was just a lot of little one-liners like that where it was just like that's what it makes it feel like it's definitely your first contemporary novel or your first book style, where it's just
Mm,
like these are really cute one-liners, but it's not realistic to the age range or the situation at times. And I think that's kind of what took it away.
yeah, I agree.
I'm reading some of the other quotes that I found on Goodreads to see if there was another one like that. And there's some that they're like, okay. Just our one liners weren't great, I think.
Yeah.
You can tell she was trying to
I
force some comedy in there.
Yeah, I'd be willing to read another book by her. I'd be willing to give her another chance. This is the first one that
I
like
think
I've
she,
read of her.
yeah. I don't think I'm not too big on reading historical fiction. I like watching it, oddly enough, because I think I like seeing the costume. I'm very much a costume person. I would love to read another book by her for her contemporary work, because I think she has such a strong base and I think she does her research well, which is something I absolutely love. I love when you can tell an author does their research. I think more authors should, because a lot of them will just say places, a lot of them will just be like, oh, this place in, this other country. And then you Google it and be like, that's in a whole nother part of the world. Were you too lazy, or did you just be like, this sounds like it's from the Middle East, so I'm just going to say it's from the Middle East?
Mm,
Or something like that. No, she took her time. She did her research. She looked at things. And I just feel like she just needs to. I feel like it's a very silly book when it was probably not meant to be as silly as it was supposed to be.
yeah. Yeah.
Because the concept, like I said, the concept is so good. Older women as assassins, in their 60s, who are still having their like everyday life too. And they're like, I have shit to do. Like
Right.
I go by my planner. I write in my planner just to get out of bed to do something, but like I'm doing stuff.
Right.
And it's like now you're disrupting my day, but I can't I couldn't just connect to the characters or the book too much. And
Yeah.
I feel like that sucks because it is such an interesting idea for a book.
Yeah. Well, we'll get him next. Let if you're watching this and you loved the book, tell us how wrong we are in the comments. Let us know. We love a good discourse. Because I'm looking from what I can see online, people do like this book. Um,
It's got a 3.91 on Goodreads.
okay.
Oh, it was a nominee for the best mystery and thriller of 2022.
Ah,
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great.
same.
I wouldn't say it's a mystery though. It's definitely a thriller.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, there's not
It's
really anything mysterious about it.
Yeah. When I think mystery, I think of something like,
Who
oh
done
my
it?
goodness,
Like,
yeah, who done it? Who am I looking for? Who's the bad guy?
right?
Technically, they're not bad guys,
Yeah.
so
Or
it's
like, how did?
definitely a thriller.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
There's no puzzle to be solved.
Right. Exactly. Well, you know what puzzle that I want to solve is what book are you reading right now that you're really
Oh,
enjoying?
yes. I'm reading Shades of Grey. Not to be
Wait.
mistaken.
Oh, okay.
No, yeah.
I was
No.
like,
So, my sister-in-law's
not to be.
best friend gave me this for Nowruz, which Nowruz is like an Iranian Persian New Year. She says it was one of her favorite books. When I opened it, I was like, Shades of Grey, and everybody else was like, huh? And she's like, no, 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 let me explain. Uh, it's very interesting. I've only read a couple chapters so far, but it's basically a society where your social hierarchy is based on the color perception that you see.
Mm,
So if you see more colors, you're higher up. The less colors you see, the lower you are. And I've only gotten to a couple chapters, but it's been really interesting. And it's kind of I don't know when it was written. I should look up more information about that. But it's actually very good. And then the cover is really cool to see because it's
that is a cool cover.
and I was like, it's so funny because I really like the idea of color usage and stuff because as somebody with such bad vision as I do, and I actually have a little trouble seeing certain blues
Mm,
due to my stigmatism and I think some other issues I have. I can see blues. I can see blues. Just when they're to lighter to darker is harder to tell. Everything's like a blue to me, and people are like, "No, that's this blue," and I'm like, "I don't know what that means. It's blue, just blue. Leave me alone." So the fact that this is all based on like a hierarchy, a social hierarchy on the colors you see, I'd be like, oh, I'm pretty low on the totem pole. But it's an interesting read, and I love to tell you guys more about it the further I get. But also, if you'd like to start reading this book and join me, that'd also be fun.
mm,
And like, let me know, and maybe I'll do like a little review of my own because I
yeah.
love also hearing the opinions of others, such as with Killers of a Certain Age. If you guys can tell us which characters you connected with, which would be great. Yeah, so we know maybe we just couldn't connect with somebody, but you guys were able to, and that's great. If you're able to
Hmm.
connect with a book, that's fantastic. I wish
Yeah.
I was able to connect with this, but it just wasn't a stronghold for me.
Right.
But it was a
Yeah.
good read. I don't regret reading it, and I would recommend it to other people. Definitely.
Same. Same. All right. Well, I would agree. I would agree with all of that. Couldn't really connect with the story so much. I liked the characters. Um, But yeah, I'll give Deanna Raybourn another chance as well.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
She's a strong writer, I will say that much. And she never I never found any so shout out to her editor. I never found any grammar mistakes or any
Mistakes.
errors like
Ah,
that,
nice.
which made the
Nice.
reading more smooth.
Well, let us know what you thought about it. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe, and let us know what you thought about the book if you read it. And follow us on all our social medias at The First Ones to Die. You can email us, thefirstones2die@gmail.com. We would love to hear your feedback. And I know you're watching the YouTube version of this, but go ahead and listen to the audio version of our podcast. We do podcasts every week. And yeah, we'd love to have you come on board. Alex, where can people find you?
You can find me at Alex and Nobody on Instagram and on TikTok, and the podcast TikTok, where I post little reviews of what we are doing on our main podcast, movie shows we are reviewing or things I have personally reviewed myself, and little clips of our book reviews as well. And we're finding you, Jonathan.
You can find me at Jonathan Keys on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you please. We will see you all for whenever our next bookcast is. We also
I don't
have
know,
another idea for another type of
little mini reviews that's gonna make
review.
me
Yeah.
giggle awkwardly.
So stay tuned for that. And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Go on over to the YouTube channel at The First Ones to Die to see all the fun stuff we got going on here, like mini reviews, book reviews, gaming videos, vlogs, all types of stuff.
Please follow us at The First Ones to Die everywhere. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe.